Good afternoon. My name is MJ Jurgensen, as most of you know. I am the Life Enrichment Director here at Ida Culver House Broadview, but I stand here today as a friend of Cyd Tolleson. It is my absolute privilege and honor to be asked to share the opening words at this memorial. Cyd Tolleson, I met many of you in the fall of 2020 under the guise of tech help. And this was a time, as you may know, when many residents needed technological support. I came to Cyd and Fred's apartment, and I don't remember what we were troubleshooting, but it was something. And when I completed the job, she told me I was a wizard. I accepted the title happily. I said, yes, I am a wizard. A couple weeks after that, she called me again and said, hey, I need help with something else. And this happened for a few months, this or that happening. And again, this is a way I got to know many of you. And over the course of those sessions, we talked about far more than laptops and iPads and cell phones. And I came to really see Cyd and her spirit and frankly felt that very strongly in return. I'll share a brief story. At the last celebration of life, I told a story about a resident who said something to me. This was a resident that was struggling with dementia, and she said a funny comment. She said something about me being a handsome boy or something of that nature. And of course, the punchline was I enjoyed it. I thought that was funny and cute. And once that celebration wrapped up, Cyd Tolleson approached me, and she took me aside, and she had tears in her eyes, and she said, "I'm really glad you told that story. It was funny. It gave everyone a good laugh. But the only thing I wish is that I'd told you that first." And we shared a big hug. And that wasn't that long ago. Cyd was brave, and she lived on this earth by her own rules, and it sounds like she went out the same way. And I'm very, very honored to have known her. There are people here who've known her for a long time, and I only knew her for 3 years, and I sure am glad I did. My hope today, as you all share in this memorial, is that we continue to share stories of good humor and memories of this brilliant, bright light of a life that was here on this earth.
Thank you, MJ. I'm David Cody. I am Cyd Tolleson's oldest and first child. My sister Cindy, who's about 15 months younger than I am and lives in Tacoma, sadly isn't here today because she has COVID. She and her husband came back from a European cruise. She thought she had a cold. Turns out she's got COVID, so she isn't here. So I'm really speaking for the two of us. We were a tight little unit. I just, as an aside to MJ's story, I worked in tech for a long time at different capacities, a couple different kinds of companies. But for a long time, I gave my mom her first laptop, and she would call me. I'd be driving a car someplace in the middle of Wisconsin or something, and she'd call me, and I'd be driving along, and she'd be talking over the speakerphone, and she'd say, "Now, I'm trying to get this picture from Fred's phone into my phone so I can put it on my laptop and send it to Cindy. But I can't," and I'd be sitting there looking at the screen that she's seeing and seeing it on the windshield of the car. And I'd be going, okay, because she's got Windows, whatever, and so I walk her through it. But as the years went by, she got more and more competent, and she really was pretty good, for a senior lady who was born in the Depression. I thought, that must be where I got that from. Now I find out why I wasn't getting anything. Now I know. Well, I thought, Well, I trained her so well. I'm not sure which is greater, the disappointment that, well, I guess I didn't do that good of a job, or just a little tinge of jealousy. Well, I'm your tech guy. So thank you for freeing up my time. And I'm probably giving a lot better tips and solutions sitting next to her than I could do looking through the windshield of a car driving through Idaho or wherever I happen to be at the time. So I've been here for 2 weeks. My wife Jane and I live in Chicago, and I flew in 2 weeks ago tomorrow. I came in Tuesday night when the doctor at UW Northwest said it's time to come. I got on a plane the next day, and I got here about 7 o'clock that night. And I'm here specifically to talk about my mother as a mother, the relationship that my sister and I had with her. And this kind of sums it up. She was very, very weak and very quiet. When I walked in the door, apparently my aunt had been with her all day, and she said, oh, she's been waiting for you. Everybody that comes in the door, she goes, is that David? Is that David? So I finally walked in at 7. I got here as soon as I could. And both my nephews, Cyd and Stephen, and Stephen's wife, Jenny, were there already with my aunt. And I thought, well, it's a rowdy crowd here. With this woman's weak, and you're just too many people. And I was really at it, like looking at them like, what are you all doing here? So I leaned over and I said, yeah, Mom, I'm here. And she said, oh, honey, I'm dying, but don't be sad. I said, well, okay, I won't be sad. I just want to make sure you're comfortable and you're okay. And she said, I'm so glad they're here. I said, well, okay. So I'm so glad you 3 were there. I think that meant the world to her. She adored her grandchildren, possibly only adoring her grandchildren's wives more than she adored her grandchildren. Certainly that's true in the case of her daughter-in-law, Jane. She really, really was a great mom and a great grandma. But you knew her, I knew her for 72 3/4 years. And the things that, as I look back and think about her as a mom, she was a great mom. She was not a helicopter parent in any stretch of the imagination. But she was always there. I remember being about 4.5 years old, and a little bully down the street kept bullying me, and she turned me around and she said, if you don't go down there and make him quit bullying you, I'm gonna start bullying you. And I remember going down the sidewalk, crying my eyes out, going down the sidewalk and walking up to this little boy standing there like this and pushing him as hard as I could and turning around and walking back to my mom crying. And I thought, well, there's a lesson in there. That's tough love. She was probably one of the bravest people I've ever known and ever will know. And there are so many instances where her courage, a very deep, deep courage to overcome whatever restrictions she may be putting on herself, whatever restrictions I might be putting on her or myself. She just would, there was nothing that she couldn't figure out a way over, under, or around. And she never, ever hesitated to do what she saw as the right thing because it was too scary. And I'm thinking of many instances of physical courage, but also emotional and spiritual courage too. She was that kind of person. She was a person who craved the company of others, other adults, specifically women. She was just blossomed in the company of when she was with a group of women, and she adored her family. She took wonderful care of all of us, but that was never quite enough. She really needed that. And one of the things that was obvious to me after she and Fred moved here 5 years ago was what a boon all of you were to her. This is what she was craving, was your company and your stories, because what she loved more than anything were stories. Your story, my story, her story, any story. So I'll just tell you one last story, which says a lot about who she was as a person. She worked her whole life, I think. We would move every couple of years. My childhood was spent with a career Marine, and our little family of four got moved, as I counted it up, 10 or 11 times in about 20 years. But once she landed, she'd be there for a while and she would get settled. She'd find something to do for work, and it wasn't about the money, although I'm sure she liked that. It was about being part of a team, the company of others, being outside of the home and getting that. So this is a quick story that tell you a lot about her character and about her as a mother too. In the 1960 census, we were living in Northern Virginia in the Washington, D.C. suburbs. She got a job as a census taker. So in those days, you didn't go to the internet and enter your social security number and enter the information they literally went door to door to door to door with big sheets that were printed by the U.S. government printing office, and they would check off how many people in the family, of what ages, their names, education level, family income, all kinds of questions. And she loved that job because it got her in front of a lot of people and she got to hear their stories. So what she really liked about being an Ida Culver was she heard all of your stories and she got to tell hers. I'm so lucky, I'm so blessed to be able to get as far as I've gotten in life and have the company of my mother that entire time. And not many people are lucky enough to have that, and I did, and I appreciate every moment we ever had on the planet together. I'm not quite sure what the next months and years hold for me, with the realization when I think of something, a funny story, a sad story, or something I want to share with my mom, I'm not sure how I'm going to handle, oh yeah, I can't call her. But it will I want to be sure I remember every time I could and did call her. I want to remember every lift she ever gave me. I want to remember every kick in the seat of the pants I ever got. More than anyone, the person that shaped me, right up until about 4 o'clock last Wednesday afternoon, more than anyone, the person that shaped me was my mom. So, thank you. Cindy isn't here, so Aaron, my son Aaron Cody, my younger of two.
So I'm Aaron, I'm Cyd's third grandson. And while I'm here representing myself today, I'm also representing a couple people that couldn't be here. So the first is my brother, Cyd's oldest grandson. And when I was thinking back on memories, and I remembered as we grew up, our parents every summer shipped us off to Omaha for 2 weeks. We grew up in the Chicago area. We didn't have any family within 500 miles of us, so we thought it was great. We'd go there, we'd see our grandparents. At one point in time, all 4 of our grandparents lived there. We'd see our aunts and uncles and cousins, and so we thought it was great. And now as a parent myself of a 6 and 8 year old, I fully understand the joys of having an empty house as well. So I can see from their point of view why they did this every summer. But my brother and I loved it, and we would always spend at least a couple days with our grandma Cyd in her Omaha downtown apartment, her condo. We would sleep in the loft space up there. It was a good time, and we enjoyed all those memories. We also enjoyed the memories once we got a little bit older and we could share a bottle of wine and converse over dinner. Those were all great memories as well. I'm also representing my wife Jill here today. So she's at home with our kids. And you know, she had a very special relationship with Cyd. Our 17th wedding anniversary is coming up in a couple weeks, and Fred and Cyd came to the wedding, and that was the start of really just a great bond between the two of them. When I was reflecting with my wife over the last couple of days, I kind of jokingly and sort of flippantly said, well, of course you were were drawn to each other. You know, when you marry into a family of mostly crazy people, you seek out the normies and you stick together. But you know, I think that was it sort of downplays the bond that they had. They really had a very special bond. Jill always felt very comfortable calling Cyd, and whether she had questions about life, looking for advice, or if she just wanted to say hello, they had a very special bond, and I'm really thankful that they had that bond for as long as they did. The first time Jill and I came here to Ida Culver was in the summer of 2019, and we brought our boys with us, and they were 2 and 4 at the time. And we got to see Cindy and Corey and Cyd and Steve, and it was a great visit. And we said, you know, we got to come back next summer. We got to do it again. But you know, as we all know, about 6 or 7 months later, the Earth came off its axis, and we all were stuck at home for 2 years. So the next time I was able to see my grandma was in December of 2021 at Fred's funeral in Washington, and I saw Cindy there as well. And again, it was a great visit, even under the circumstances. We all had a great time together, and so we said, okay, pandemic's over, we got to come back. So we came back last summer. Again, great visit. Got to see all the family, and we were super glad that we did. And now, as I stand here today, I'm very glad that we did. And about a week after we got back, I turned 40, and I got a card in the mail from my grandma, and in it was a handwritten letter as well. And she started off the letter by saying, you know, I think that you might appreciate this fan letter more than any present I could give. And she talked about how proud she was of the man she's seen me become. Of course, how much she loved Jill. You know, I think she was contractually obligated to love me 1% more, but Jill got the full 99% though. And she talked about how glad she was that I'm here to look after my dad. And she laughed, saying that it was funny that Mr. Bossy Pants, as she called him in the letter, was generationally stuck between her and me. She found that somehow fitting. And she was right, that letter was better than any present she could have given me. And I don't hold on to these things, that's just not the type of person that I am, but that letter is sitting on top of my desk at home because I read it a couple times this past week, and I'll hold on to that one. So I'm very grateful for the love and the positive example that she gave to my brother and me. I'm especially grateful for the 17-year bond that she had with my wife, Jill. And I'm also grateful, as my dad said, for all the friendships and relationships that she had with all of you. So thank you.
You get me again. I have a couple last words here, and then I would invite anybody. Is this live?
Yeah.
There's a switch on it? Okay. I would ask if anybody that has a good story, anything they'd like to share about my mom. We have the talking stick here, as we used to say in Indian Guides. We have the talking stick. Please feel free to share. I would love to hear your thoughts and your experiences and your stories about my mom. We all would, really. That would kind of complete the whole cycle for us, because you were so important to her. So my last words to you as I get ready to hand this over are thank you for the support, the attention, the time, the stories, the sharing, and the love that you all gave my mother. And that includes all the people in this room and all the people that aren't in this room. That includes the residents and the staff. She had such good relationships with so many of the staff that she was just, really complete. As I would have said to her, you're in pig heaven. You fell in just the right place. And that was not, by the way, an accident. She shopped around a long time to find this place, and she was really, really, really happy here. And that beautiful as the location is, and the setting, and the views, I think that was more to speak to each one of you. than it does to anything in the physical plane. So thank you so much. Thank you for coming today. Thank you for the love that you've shown to my family since we've come. So many of you have stopped and shared a little bit and spoken, and that means a great deal to us. So thank you. Who wants the talking stick?
5 years ago, Cyd and I moved to Ida Culver on the same day. A couple of weeks later, we met at the newcomers group, and everyone was venting their challenges. And I had a particular challenge that was saddening me. With 4 words, Cyd completely overturned the situation and made me feel that I should be proud and happy with what was happening. And for that, I will forever be grateful to her. She was kind, she was gentle, she was the best friend. We made a very deep connection on that day, and it remained throughout. We used to have, in the recent couple of years, we'd have dinner once a week on Wednesdays. And she was a wonderful person, and I feel honored and proud to have met her, and may she rest in eternal peace. Thank you, Cyd.
The Tollesons and the Scotts arrived at Ida Culver House Broadview 5 years ago, and within 15 minutes, Cyd and I knew that we were going to be good friends. It really helped that both of our husbands were Marines and Republicans. And what we didn't know at that time was how special our relationship would prove to be over the 5 years. And we talked at some length about whether it was too huge a risk to make close friends at this advanced age, because you knew that your friendship wouldn't last long because somebody would get sick or move or something like that. But we decided to take that risk, and we had such fun and such wonderful conversations over the ensuing 5 years. I can remember one incident. We were just coming off of COVID and the shutdown, and we decided to fly the coop. And so we decided that we would drive all the way to Federal Way, which was midway between Seattle and Tacoma. And so we met my brother and Cindy, Cyd's daughter, for lunch in Federal Way. Well, you would have thought we were going to Paris, because it was such a wonderful, we laughed all the way down and all the way back. And just before she went into the hospital this last time, we had made plans to go back again to Federal Way. So when Cindy is better, I will go down to Federal Way and we will reminisce. But one of the things that I really appreciated about Cyd is how witty and warm and wise she was. She was an interesting and interested person, and she could talk about just anything. And whether she knew about it or not, you thought she did when you were coming away. And I think that she watched every movie filmed from the time she was born and could remember most of them. At the end of her life, in the months that preceded her death, we probably talked 2 or 3 times a day. We would have dinner and then go back to our apartments, get in our jammies, and talk for another hour or so. And every morning we would do a check-in. We probably missed a lot of Ida Culver House check-ins, but we never missed that telephone check-in. So I thank Cyd. I admire her enormously. I will love her, treasure her, and miss her for the rest of my life. And Cyd, I know you're listening to us, and I want to tell you that I am going to do my darndest to make that Christmas cactus bloom in your honor.
Hi. I only knew Cyd for 2 years because that's as long as I've been here. But she was the director of our book club that we formed a few weeks after I moved here. And I got to know her quite well. Not as well as you, Ruth, but quite well. I admired her very much. And she led this group with a firm but loving hand. We discussed so much of our lives and of the lives of the people in the books that we read, and had wonderful discussions. And I will always remember her for that.
I ate lunch with Cyd almost every day with my two friends, Nancy and Carla. And so as I got to know her, one reason I was drawn to her was because of her spirituality. And she told us that she was a Buddhist. And so I would like to honor her with this prayer of protection. The light of Spirit surrounds you. The love of Spirit enfolds you. The power of Spirit protects you. The presence of Spirit watches over you. Wherever you are, Spirit is, and all is well.
I thought Cyd was a beautiful woman, and she was very unique. There'll be no others like her. She had good advice. She told things like they were. She said it like it was. And it was somebody you could always enjoy being with. She was comfortable, she had good advice, and we'll always miss her. And I was always jealous of that beautiful hair she had.
Which she would point out had never seen a drop of color. That was her color. I thought that's not fair. I've got more gray hair than she's got.
Say that a little louder. That was the color of her hair.
And see, that was her real color. She's never colored her hair. If I can just share one thing you might not know about my mom. Or if you do know, then you're very strange. She was 91 when she passed away. And both she and Fred were here for the first 3 years, and then Fred passed away 2 years ago. But they were both ardent, and I do mean diehard, Star Trek fans. They would not, every night after dinner, they would beat a path back to their apartment to make sure that they had their coffee while they were watching some version of Star Trek. And they had, so I would start finding, if I found little tchotchkes that were starship pins or little models and things like that, I'd always find it and send it to Fred or my mom. But she was an absolute Star Trek fan. I thought one of these days I'm gonna be flipping through YouTube looking for something. I'm gonna find a video of a Star Trek convention. I'm going to look at it and go, is that my mother? In that costume, dressed as a Klingon? She was just a huge fan of, as I kept saying, stories. But that particular set of stories, that got right to her. So that's something I don't know if she was brave enough to share with any of you or not. I think this concludes our time. We have lemonade and I look like tea, iced tea and cookies and whatever refreshments. So please let's all adjourn out to either outside or to the lobby where the refreshments are. And, by all means, the greatest honor you could do to her is talk about her. Thank you.